In this video, I'd like to introduce you to a web design tool called Dreamweaver. It is used to make web pages and websites, and it is extremely feature rich. So we're going to do a walkthrough of a basic web page, but in future projects, we're going to be working with the features such as widgets, some of the advanced layouts that they have, and many other things. So within this particular project, what I'd like you to get through is a basic walkthrough of how to set up a project, how to create a basic page, and how to fill it up with some basic content and work with some of the panels involved. So let's go ahead and get started. This is what our web page is going to look like by the end of the video. We're going to create a basic text page that has a header, it's got a footer, it has content, and it stays centered in the page. Now, in our previous projects up to this, we've had to hand code our HTML, our CSS, and our JavaScript. And you should know by now that creating a header and a footer and all of the style of this page would be quite a bit of work ahead of time, but Dreamweaver makes this extremely easy by just selecting a template that already has this all set up. So let's go ahead and begin that process right now. So the very first thing that I would like you to pay close attention to and make sure that you master is setting up a website in Dreamweaver. So the first step would be to click on the Site drop-down menu up at the top, and then you're going to click on New Site. And we have to give it a name, so I'll just call it Dreamweaver Project 1. And then you have to select somewhere to save it. So I'm going to click on this little folder icon, and I already have a folder for Dreamweaver Project 1 set up here. If you don't have a folder, you can go ahead and click this new folder icon right here, and you'll create one yourself. But I'm going to go ahead and select this folder, and then click the Select button. Now that we have our name and our location where we're going to save it all set up, we can click Save. And now down here, if you have a set of panels, one of them will say File, and this is where our files are going to get stored. Now what you see in the middle of the screen is kind of a quick launch. We're going to avoid this for now just so that you can see the other steps. So let's go ahead and click the File menu and click New. What's in here are the templates that I spoke of earlier, where we can click through these here and it'll show us a little preview of what our web page will look like at the very beginning. And there are some blank templates that we can even take it further and do some server-side stuff with ASP, Cold Fusion, PHP. There are fluid grid layouts. This is for if we wanted to develop something that would be responsive, meaning that it would change the look of the web page based upon if we were on a mobile or tablet or desktop. So we're just going to stick with the blank page templates just to keep this fairly easy, but I did want to show you that Dreamweaver is extremely feature rich. It's ready to go. It helps you get started and make your web pages faster. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these templates. The one that we're going to use is this one right here. It says one column fixed, it's centered, it has a header, and it has a footer. So let's go ahead and click on that one. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to select that it's an HTML5 document. That's what we've created so far in this class. And the layout of our CSS will be in a new file. We can actually specify it. If we already had a pre-made CSS layout that we wanted, we could go ahead and link that here, but we don't. But I'd like to point that out for future reference. Let's go ahead and click Create. And we have to give a name to our CSS file. So this is going to be our CSS file. Since we're doing a one-page website, let's just call it index for now. And then click Save. So my screen defaulted to the code view, but yours may have come up like this. So this is what our web page looks like right now. It is unsaved at this point. So down here in the File Explorer, you can see I have my CSS file, but I don't actually have the web page. I haven't saved it yet. Up here it says Untitled 3, which means not saved. So let's go ahead and give a name to this document. We'll put the title in and then save it. So let's go ahead and call this Dreamweaver Project 1. And then when I hit enter, it'll actually accept that change. And then I can go ahead and save it. I'm going to click File, Save As, and then we'll call this Index, and then click Save. Alright, something that behind the scenes it just did was, if I flipped over to the code view, the link here did change to a relative link, which means that the files here are in the same directory. Prior to this, if you had noticed when I flipped between the code view and the design view, there was a much longer line of code in here. That's an absolute value for where to find the CSS. So as you work with Dreamweaver here, anything that you do in the design view happens in the code view. So I'm going to go ahead and change the top of this page to say Web Design. Now if I go over to the code view, you'll see that my H1 changed to Web Design. Now let's go ahead and split. So split means that I can see the code and the text, or the visual element at the same time. So the design view's over here and the code view's over here. Let's go ahead and change this heading. Notice how when I highlight this, the code highlighted over there as well. And I'm going to change that heading to say HTML and see how it pops in here. And then I'll go ahead and change this one to say CSS. And it changed over there. Alright, just to speed things along in this video, I already have the content already typed up. So I'm just going to copy and paste this into the document so that I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time typing. Alright, so as I paste it into the code view, now my design view updated to reflect those changes. So I'm going to go ahead and slide this over a little bit, and as a matter of fact, we can flip completely over to design view at this point. Let's go ahead and add an image. So up here it says insert logo. This is a placeholder for a picture. Now I already have this on the desktop right here, so I want this cardinal image into the header of this web page. To do that, we have to actually import this. I'm going to drag it over into my files panel down here. So this shows all the files in my website. If you don't have this open, it may be a tab in your set down here. Otherwise, you can go to Window and select Files or push F8. Alright, but now that I have this in here, down here at the bottom is what's known as your Property Explorer. And this right here, being an image placeholder, has a source tag. So I'm going to go ahead and change the attributes, change the source attribute to this cardinal, simply by clicking on that little crosshair icon right here. I can just drag it over to cardinal and it's going to pop in. But it's going to be the full size of whatever the image is to start. But again, Dreamweaver makes things pretty easy. I can manipulate the width and the height down here in the Property Explorer. But I may want to make sure that the proportions stay the same as the original so it doesn't get all weird looking. So if I put in 50 while it's unlocked and I push enter, notice how it squishes down. I don't want that. So I'm going to push Control Z and undo that change. If I ever do something that I want to get back, I can go to the edit menu and push undo, which is usually the top choice. I could also redo something with Control Y. So Control Z and Control Y are two things that you may just want to memorize. But for now, let's go ahead and lock. I'm going to click this little padlock right here to maintain the proportions of this image. And let's make this image 75 tall, or 75 wide. That might be a little too small, so let's make it 75 tall instead, which changes the width. So notice how the proportions change, and that's about right. Alright, next to this image, let's go ahead and just type Mentor High School. All right, so as I type that in, notice how it's underlined. We don't want that. Well, what's happening here is this image placeholder is also a link. Well, we want to maintain that link, but we don't want the text to be the link as well. So the quickest way to change this is let's just go to the code view and notice how the anchor tag, which was our link, ends after our text. Let's just slide that. I'm going to double click it and slide it to before where our text begins. Actually, there's a little space there, so I'm going to go ahead and clean that up as well. But now the link ends here. And if I were to flip back to the code view, the underline is gone. Now, another thing that we may want to do is now change the colors of the page. We probably want this title to be a lot larger. So let's go ahead and do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select this image, and I'm going to make this image float to the left. So let's go ahead and do that so that our text doesn't just go to the next line. Well, I'm going to want my CSS styles panel open. And the first thing that I'm going to want to do is change its display property from a block, which means that elements stack up on top of each other, to inline block. So where's that at? Right here. All right, so when I go to inline block, everything kind of flows together on one line. That's much nicer. That is actually different from, I said earlier, floating left. Float left would do something different. So my apologies, I meant to say inline block right here. Now let's go ahead and make this text bigger. So let's give it a style of its own. So let's go ahead and click, well, we're going to highlight it and right click and select style. And we want to, CSS styles, and we want to create a new style altogether just for this particular page title. So we have to enter a name for this. This is going to be a class. It's not going to be an ID. It's going to be a class, and we'll call it page title. And once we have this typed in here, we can click OK. And now here's all of the CSS properties that we can change. We can even type in advanced properties over here if we wanted to, but we won't need to. All right, so let's select the font size. Let's try 36, which is a ½ inch tall for now. Although I may want to make that bigger shortly after. Let's make the color of this black. Let's go ahead and move it over from the picture. So let's give it a margin on the left side of this text. I'm going to do that under box. I'm going to uncheck margin and say the left side needs to be, let's try 75 pixels. Now let's go ahead and click apply. All right, and click OK. All right, so this text doesn't have that style yet. Let's go ahead and select that. Let's select under CSS styles, page title. All right, now you can see it popped over, and I don't think this is big enough. I kind of knew that was going to be the case. So let's go ahead and make it a full inch tall by making it 72 pixels. So 72 is equal to 1 inch tall. 36 is a ½ inch. And that definitely stands out a lot better. So the next thing we probably want to do is change the colors of this page as well. Right now I can see that this image, although it's a GIF image, which means that it'll be transparent in the areas it doesn't have filled in, I can see that this needs a little bit of editing, but instead of masking that, let's just make the header up here white, and that'll kind of fade into the background. So let's go ahead and select somewhere in the header. So anywhere in the header will be just fine. And you'll see in the CSS styles we have the header div. And notice how it's green down here. I'm going to click the green box and just I can click anywhere. I've got this little eyedropper anywhere that's white, or I can select white in the list down here, and that's going to change the background. So notice how like those little edges that looked like they weren't clipped all the way are just going to fade into the background. So I'm going to go ahead and keep that white. But the container box here, let's change that color. So I'm going to select the container box, which is the content that contains the text. And notice how this is white. Let's go ahead and Let's make that a light gray. So in this list down here, let's make that a light gray. And let's change the outside to mentor colors. So I'm going to click the body, and for the body, I'm going to select the red that is actually in the cardinal up here, just to tie that in. Now for the footer down here, let's go ahead and select the footer and select the color of that. So now I have the eyedropper, and I think I'm going to make the, I'm going to click off of this for a moment. I want to get the yellow that's in the cardinal beak. So I'm going to go ahead and select that again. Oops, didn't get it. Okay, so now I've gotten it, and I have the footer is the color of the yellow beak down there. All right, so let's change the text of the footer as well, since we're down there, and we'll say Mentor High School 2015. And let's add a symbol over here. So if I wanted to add a symbol, there is this insert panel, and it's got a drop down box, and we want to select a symbol from the text category. And the one that we're going to want is going to be this character copyright. But what you may find is that if it's not listed, there's going to be a special category that has the other characters. You'll probably see this, and you can select from a whole bunch. And this is the one that we want. We want the and, or that's the ampersand sign, copy, semicolon. So that's the one we want, and that's going to add this little symbol down here, that non-traditional character. Okay, so at this point, I think we've built the web page. Let's go ahead and preview it. So I'm going to go ahead and save the page, and I'm going to click this little globe icon right here, and I'm going to preview this in Chrome. Since that Chrome is my default browser, I could push F12, and it's going to ask me if I want to save it. And this is how it looks. So you can see that we built that web page fairly quickly, and we were able to do a number of things just by using the color panels and all of the extra features that Dreamweaver provides. We didn't have to do a whole lot of coding to create it. But that being said, we can't rule out the necessity of having to have those skills of being able to edit the code behind, because sometimes you'll run into situations where the design view doesn't do what you wanted to do, and you have to flip back over and hand edit it, like we did with this anchor tag right here. The closing tag was put at the end. We didn't want it at the end. We had to actually move it. So there will be times in the future that will be similar to that, where the drag and drop tools just won't be able to do what you want it to do, and the best alternative is to be able to flip back to the code view and edit it yourself.